Today, I wanted to respond to this pretty weird article by Bianca Betancourt, who was the one and only press person that Harry and Meghan allowed access to on the Columbia tour. And she came out and put out an article that was peculiar, to say the least. It's called What I Learned Traveling with Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan. 4 days in Colombia with the Sussexes granted me an up-close look at how they work and who they do it all for. Okay, I'm sure you know I'm gonna have a lot of problems with this article, but the main thing that I got when I read this article, what I realized, was that this was more so just a self-defense sort of article. She was clearly offended at some of the comments about this situation that were sort of directed towards her. Now, Bianca Betancourt is somebody who works for Harper's Bazaar, and although she has been working as a journalist for 10 years and has profiled a lot of celebrities, like she mentions Bad Bunny and Beyonce and Penelope Cruz. Though she says interviewing Penelope Cruz, covering Beyonce, and profiling Bad Bunny. This to me says one of the only people she's actually interviewed that was high profile was Penelope Cruz. The rest, she was just there observing and reporting, which is fine. That is what the life of a journalist is like. But her degree of offense to what people have said is misplaced. The main criticism people had about this situation was that this woman, Bianca, this journalist, is not a news journalist and does not have experience reporting news. She's not a technical, journalist that you would call a journalist. She is more in line as a columnist or a fashion or pop culture commentator or writer. And yes, she might identify as a journalist, totally fine. She is doing journalism, but she's not what most people would call, by definition, a journalist. Because when you think of a journalist, you think of somebody who is going there to find the facts and report the facts in the news. And somebody who has experience in news journalism is what comes to mind when we use the word journalism or journalist. And she's just not necessarily in that arena, which is totally fine. But she shouldn't be offended at that. She should just own it. Yes, she has 10 years experience writing, but it has been more so in the celebrity circuits, musicians, actors, art, fashion, artistic things. She is more so, if she identifies as a journalist, an art journalist, not a news journalist. And the general public thinks of journalism or journalists in terms of newsy stuff. And I know a lot of the comments about her being the one press person there did connect to the fact that she does not have experience reporting news, which just is a fact. It's not meant to be offensive. It just is what it is. She has not been somebody who reports on humanitarian issues or charities or charity work or on philanthropy or on the royals or on politics or politicians. She does not have experience reporting on those sorts of things that are news oriented in the traditional sense of the word. So her offense to this whole thing was super misplaced, and it seems like she wrote this whole article just to defend herself and be like, no, I am a real journalist and nobody should have said anything rude about that. But here's why people had a problem with it. Harry and Meghan were so clearly censoring their trip in such an extreme way that they only let this woman, who doesn't have experience reporting news, follow them around and have access to their events. And all the other journalists that she was briefing were like, what is this briefing? This is trash, basically. They reported that the news Bianca was giving them in the briefings had fruity details, pointless details about what people were wearing or who got hugs and how much people were smiling. It wasn't the facts of how many people were there, where did they come from, were they locals, were they invited, how did they get there? There were no follow-up questions on What are you going to do to give back to these communities? How are these communities benefiting? What is this program? Part of why we don't know what a socio-emotional gym program is because Bianca was responsible for finding it out and she didn't. So she didn't do a good job of gathering the news to then brief to and share with other journalists and news organizations. So her lack of experience showed up in real life in her approach. And her approach was unfortunately lacking in terms of that arena of delivering news. She says she found herself charting through Colombia with Diana's son and his wife, watching the warmth and compassion with which they approached meeting hundreds of strangers, and then witnessing the way these in real life events were discussed online made me understand the vertigo that comes with simply existing at Harry and Meghan's level of fame. Those 4 days in Colombia weren't about the pomp and circumstance of celebrity. However, for the Sussexes, everything they do and everywhere they go always circles back to their mission of showing up and doing good. Problem: if you are trying to defend yourself as a more serious journalist that should be taken seriously, then don't put IRL, put in real life, okay? Just saying. But saying here in this paragraph, she's saying that they had warmth and compassion when meeting strangers. Sure, yeah, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that they're doing anything valuable. That doesn't excuse the cost that they placed on the people of Colombia without returning hardly anything to the communities. And she's basically saying that just because they greeted these people with warmth and compassion and that their mission is to show up and do good, they shouldn't have been criticized for this trip online. There were very real and valid criticisms of this trip. Harry and Meghan did not provide value or aid to these communities that was meaningful enough. And yet they spoke about it like it was earth-shattering, life-changing. It just wasn't. The visit was also controversial simply on the basis of why are they there, what are they doing, regardless of who invited them. The next paragraph I'd like to discuss is this one. There's no doubt that challenging the dehumanizing effect of the internet is a lofty goal, especially when the youngest generation is a group that was essentially born with the digital space at their fingertips. But if witnessing the Duke and Duchesses meeting with students, teachers, parents, and community leaders on the ground in Colombia showed me anything, it's that a healthier future for our children, one with less bullying, less toxicity, and less encouragement to troll and react, is possible, simply because it's what today's children ultimately want for themselves. Well, it's a shame that Harry and Meghan are trying to claim this when they themselves have been extreme bullies. They have spread mistruths and lies about the royal family, specific journalists, and specific members of staff who simply worked at the palace, who simply worked under Harry and Meghan or near them or adjacent to them. And Harry and Meghan have made smear campaigns about these people. The Oprah interview alone has so many lies in it, it's dizzying. So Harry and Meghan should not be hailed as the poster people for this cause. They have contributed to these negative things. Then she discusses the final panel that Meghan participated in. Describing this era of her life as her chapter of joy, she said, "The more you are able to look at your life and really truly recognize and be able to be grateful for your life, you have to be grateful for all aspects of it. My intentionality is to enjoy this chapter and be able to love through every piece of this as best we can." And it would seem that the author quite liked that buzzword intentionality because she later uses it in a little bit clunky of a manner in this article. Here she says, "I needed that positivity during my time covering the Sussexes, since any sort of association with the couple, even just being a pool reporter, sharing basic details and facts about their day-to-day events, means opening yourself up to unwarranted critique from, well, the world. Within hours of the announcement I would be accompanying them on tour, I was called a grifter, a mouthpiece, and a calculated piece of their PR puzzle, among other things. And that was before I even sent out a single pool report. UK reporters specifically were baffled about my being there. I was described as having no news background. My entire career was discredited because of what I can only assume is the fact that I'm not white and not British. There was no mention of my years-long dedication to uplifting Latino art and culture because the Colombian tour was planned to the minute with essentially zero drama for the tabloids to pick up on and sensationalize. I was the next easiest target. It all felt eerily familiar. Okay, this is super problematic. This woman does not have a news background. She has never worked for what would be considered a news magazine or publication. So there is zero problem with that statement that people have made that she had no news background, because she doesn't have a news background. She's never been a beat reporter for a news publication. She just hasn't. Now, as far as having a background, dedication to uplifting Latino art and culture, how is anybody supposed to know that? She could have instead tweet or put out in this column that part of why she accepted this was because she's dedicated to uplifting Latino art and culture, and go on to focus on those elements to the Colombia trip and those things that she saw there. People would respect that and be like, that's why this woman went on this trip and took this opportunity so that she could continue to support this cause that she feels passionately about. And these are all the things she learned and would like other people to know about. Instead, she took this complaining sort of a victim approach of like, it must just be because I'm not British and I'm not white. How foolish. What does that have to do with anything? Nobody even knew what ethnicity or race this woman is. Nobody cares. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. To assume that that is the only reason why people criticized the choice is ridiculous and further shows that she has no news background, because she doesn't get it. She did not provide good enough information while she was there. In her pool reports, she did not give information and facts that were beneficial to writers and reporters and news outlets. Like I said, we don't know still so much information about the trip because this woman didn't ask those questions and didn't provide that information. So that's exactly why she was criticized as a choice, because, and let me be clear, she wasn't criticized as a person or as a journalist per se. She was criticized in terms of the wrong person for the job, which is really a criticism of the Sussexes for choosing someone who cannot adequately provide news about a given situation. Because like I said, she did not ask questions. She did not provide answers. We still don't know what half of the stuff is or meant because she just kind of didn't get the news. That's the point. She did not have experience on anything like this, and it showed, because we still don't know what half of these organizations really are, what they do, what these programs were, what they meant, what actually happened on this trip, what was actually said, what progress happened, what things were discussed. We don't know what these programs were that they talk about. We have no idea what they were. And it's all because this reporter lady is not a reporter at all. Her closing statement says, if anything, what struck me most as a witness to the Sussexes' operation was the intentionality to the way they use their platform. Regardless of public opinion, the Duke and Duchess are committed to continuing acts of service. It's not a requirement for them. After all, plenty of celebrities don't see service as part of their role. Instead, it's a calling. That acute attention to detail in the way they marshal their fame, the way they move about the world, and the way they choose whom to collaborate with is what will help them make the most impact in the future. But the problem is they didn't provide acts of service. They didn't do anything while they were there. They didn't even participate in like a litter cleanup of a beach, like nothing even simple as that. They didn't do any work while they were there. They didn't make any big differences. They didn't move any conversations forward. If you would like more proof of that and it broken down in greater detail, I will link the playlist here. You can find all the videos on that there. Please leave in the comments what you thought of this lady's article and her sort of rebuttal to the criticism that she got for doing a bad job reporting on and finding facts on her job following the Sussexes around Colombia. I cannot wait to read your thoughts in the comments, and now it is time for question of the day. But this time it's more of a comment. This top comment by Bev Wood reads, Harry and Meghan use social causes to advance their image and wealth instead of using their image and wealth to advance social causes. That is the problem in a nutshell. Very well said. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye.